Hey, good morning again, everybody. This is Hurricane Specialist Robbie Berg. I'm now standing in the Hurricane Specialist unit, which is actually the unit that I work in. And during the hurricane season, we actually staff this unit with at least 2 people on every shift. And so actually I'm on shift today with Hurricane Specialist John Cangelosi. We're going to talk to him in a second, but first I want to talk to the branch chief of the Hurricane Specialist Unit, Dr. Michael Brennan. He's going to give us a quick overview of how the unit works.
Yeah, so here in the Hurricane Specialist Unit we have a group of 10 forecasters. So as Robbie mentioned, starting May 15th all the way through November 30th, we have 2 forecasters on shift 24 hours a day, monitoring our area of responsibility for tropical cyclone formation and then issuing forecasts and watches and warnings for any storms that do form. So we have responsibility, maybe Robbie can show the map real quick. So we have responsibility here for, most people know, we have responsibility for the North Atlantic Basin, the entire North Atlantic, the Gulf, the Caribbean Sea, but we also have responsibility for the Eastern North Pacific Basin, which runs from the west coast of North America out to 140 degrees west, which is a little more than halfway to the Hawaiian Islands. So we have 2 basins that we monitor. A lot of times the activity will be busy in one basin and quiet in the other. Occasionally we'll get times where we get busy in both basins, but the season usually starts more quickly in the East Pacific. Typically the season peaks in June, July, into early August. The Atlantic Basin generally gets more active in the August, September, and into October timeframe. So again, we're issuing a tropical weather outlook 4 times a day, talking about systems that could go on to become tropical cyclones over the next 5 days in both basins. And then when we actually have storms, we're issuing a full 5-day forecast of the track and intensity and size of the storm every 6 hours. And when storms get close to land and can bring tropical storm or hurricane conditions, we issue tropical storm and hurricane watches and warnings both for the United States. We issue them for the United States, and then we coordinate the issuance of all those watches and warnings with our international partners in the Caribbean, includes Mexico, Bermuda, Canada, Cuba, the various islands in the Lesser and Greater Antilles. So it's really a team effort, both nationally and internationally, to ensure that everybody in hurricane-prone areas gets the best forecast and warnings possible of the various hazards that are associated with the storms.
Great. So thanks, Mike, for that overview. And so speaking of the forecast, let's turn over to John Cangelosi now, who's going to talk us through kind of how a forecast is made, the different tools that we use to make the forecasts, and so forth. So good morning, John.
Good morning, Robbie. Thank you for having me here. So yeah, to make the forecast, first thing we have to do is to actually look at what's going on right now, or observations. Our number 1 tool by a mile here at the Hurricane Center is satellite imagery. Here's a look at what we call visible imagery today. Pretty quiet day across the Atlantic. We'd like to see this on June 1. We know it won't last through the season, but we'll evaluate to see if there's any areas of interest that may become tropical cyclones. And today in the Atlantic, no tropical cyclones in sight for at least the next 5 days. So good news there, but we know that will change as the season progresses. And by the way, we can observe ships and buoys report data out at sea, and you can see those are the yellow markers here on the screen. And even if the hurricane hunters are flying, we'll also see the data plotted right here on our screen, which gives us a nice use of all of the observations that are currently going on. Now, that doesn't really help us forecast, though. To make a forecast, we come over here to our other system, where many of you probably are familiar with these spaghetti models. We view models in a different way, of course, but when we're finalizing our forecast, we use this system to predict where the system is going to go during the next 5 days, and then also predict how strong it may become and how large they may become. And when it comes to the track forecast, this was for Irma last year, which we did very well for this system. But in general, our performance has gotten so much better over the past couple of decades. I want to show you how much better. In 1990, our average track error for 3 days is shown here by the blue circle, such that if we forecasted a system to hit Tampa, our average error could have been anywhere within that blue circle for the center of the system. Today, for the exact same forecast scenario, our average track error is shown here by the red circle. So we've made tremendous gains thanks to the advancements in the models and the technology. And Robbie, once we're done with the whole forecast process, our job then is to coordinate with our partners in the National Weather Service and the Department of Defense, and we get on the hurricane hotline, which is here and in the back of the room, and get all of the messaging, all of that ironed out so that we can communicate with the public.
So John, one interesting thing about this job that I wanted people to see is that even though we have all this technology, we still use paper and pencils. And this is one of the maps that we actually used for, this would be Hurricane Harvey. And one of the things that we have to do during a storm is we have to estimate where the center of the storm is located. And we do that in several ways by using satellite imagery or the aircraft reconnaissance. And every time we get the position from one of those tools, we actually plot it on this paper map. And we do this because we need situational awareness. We need to be seeing where the storm is going, and doing it on paper sometimes is a little bit easier for us to interpret in real time.
Oh, I agree. I still plot it on paper. In fact, I'll encourage our users at home to track them this way too.
Yeah, so it's not just an exercise where we always talk about getting out your tracking map and tracking the storm, but we actually also do it here at the Hurricane Center. We do it both on paper, and then as you saw, we do it on the computer as well. So for this particular case from Hurricane Irma last year, what you're looking at is all of the colored lines are what the models were predicting with the storm located just off the northeast coast of Cuba. The white lines with the symbols is what actually happened with the storm. So you can see that in that particular case with Irma, they were all pretty tightly clustered, showing a landfall in southwest Florida, and in fact that's what happened at that particular time. Now, not every guidance or every forecast cycle is going to be that tightly clustered, and sometimes our models are all over the place, which makes the forecast a little bit more tricky.
Right, every case is very different, and this was, I don't want to call it an easier forecast, but models in better agreement, we like seeing cases like this, but all of them are very different.
Okay, so lastly, John, I know you actually have a product you have to issue. Every month we have to issue what's called a tropical weather summary, and since the Hurricane Center, or hurricane season in the Pacific started on May 15th, we actually have to issue a tropical weather summary for the Pacific Ocean since it is June 1st. So we're going to actually go through the process now, showing you how we actually issue this product.
Right, so here's our monthly summary, and the East Pacific during the month of May was pretty quiet, as it usually is. We only had one tropical depression, didn't reach tropical storm strength, and only lasted a couple of days. And at the top of the product, we'll tell you what actually occurred in the month. By the way, if you're not familiar with this product, we do issue it every single it's monthly at the first of every month. So this is for June, this was for May, a summary for that. So look for this in both the Atlantic and East Pacific basins through the year. So why don't we send this together, Robbie?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, so all we did is open the product. We already have this drafted, so we're just going to close it. A pop-up comes up, send product, transmit to gateway. We're going to say yes, and thanks everyone. We issued a product together to the world.
So the product is out. You might be able to go to the Hurricane Center website and actually find it. You see what John just sent out. So that's how we actually issue products, whether it be the public advisory or the tropical cyclone discussion. It's all done through that system there. So thank you, John. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move over to the other side of the room and talk to Dr. Jack Bevan. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning.
How's it going? So Jack's been here how many years now, Jack?
Full-time, 25 years.
25 years. So Jack is an expert at hurricane forecasting. So Jack, one thing I wanted to talk about that we often get a lot of questions is when we look at the board up here, we have all these names. So these are the names for this coming hurricane season. Where do we get those names?
The names are set up in a series of lists that we repeat every 6 years. And the name lists that we've got right now were originally set up back in the late 1970s, early 1980s when we switched to the alternating men's and women's names. And basically we keep reusing the same names every 6 years with a big exception. And that exception is when we have a particularly memorable storm that we are retiring. And we have several storms, for example, from the 2017 hurricane season, including Irma and Maria, that the names we will never use again because they will be officially retired because they were so destructive and so notorious in terms of how their long and horrible paths through the Caribbean and the Atlantic. So the WMO, the World Meteorological Organization, oversees the list, and every year before the hurricane season starts, we will send people to meet with our counterparts in the weather services in the Caribbean and the other countries that we do business with as part of our hurricane work, and we'll agree on what names are going to be retired and what the replacement names are going to be. So it's a process that occurs every year. So you'll see the 2017 list show up again in 2023, but it'll have several different names on it, and the names that we've got in 2018 you'll see again 2024, depending, and we'll see which names are infamous enough to get retired in the 2024 season. Hopefully none, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, after last hurricane season, let's hope this one's a much quieter season.
Indeed, yes.
Okay, well, thanks, Jack, for joining us this morning. So that's pretty much it, everybody. That's the Hurricane Specialist Unit here at the Hurricane Center, one of the three main branches of the National Hurricane Center. With that, we're going to sign off now, but join us at the next half hour. We'll be visiting another part of the National Hurricane Center. So goodbye, everyone.